Today, I wanted to talk about the topic, which is trauma and kind of adversity based, but mostly trauma. And it's kind of a topic that is not mentioned about too much unless it's late at night or you're with that one friend or family member that's very dear to you. It's just a topic that I wouldn't say anyone says is bad or you can't talk about it, but it's something where you don't just bring it up because the moment you wake up and the moment that you're going to bed, it's always an act. You put on this face. The only time you're your real self and having your own real thoughts and thinking about what you really want to do in this lifetime or how you really feel about this lifetime or even yourself, that's only very early in the morning and when you're alone by yourself at night or with someone that's very, very close to you. You can kind of get out these emotions too. So that's why for here, it brings me to the topic. So maybe I can articulate and help any of you to, think and have a thought process. And for anyone that doesn't know me or is just tuning in, I'm doing a 365-day regimen that is based on me working out and running every single day. Running is minimum 3 to 10 miles, eating healthy, no cheat meals. I'm making sure that I read and educate each and every day. I make one of these videos every day, starting a main channel, and no substances at all. So I'm very like monk mode basically, or 75-day hard challenge, but 365 days. My name is David Amberghini, and this topic, you might think, well, how are you credible? Well, you may ask, and you don't already know me. So I lost both parents before I was the age of 20. So I was 19 years old when both of my birth parents were dead. And I know it might sound insensitive, but that's just kind of as simple as I can put it in terms of right now. Obviously, there's a lot more to it. Kind of one of the last of the full blood family tree. I have a half brother and sister. I don't look at it like that. They're very dear and loving to myself, and they're awesome. But besides that, it's kind of me versus the world right now, and in a good way. I'm not playing victim or survival or anything like that. It's just the reality. The world's going around. It's not going to stop for me. It's not going to stop for anyone. That's just the honest truth. So take that with you, please. If you think that's stoic or however, I don't care what the term is, but I just wanted to let you know and tune in. So before you listen to me yap for maybe 10 minutes or whatever, you're like, how do you know, what hardships are? I've experienced adversities from money coming in to having nothing as a childhood, very toxic and traumatic arguments and stuff like that. I thought my stepdad was my real dad for the longest time. Both parents, again, like I said, are deceased, and the list goes on. I could go on and on and on, but it's not about me. And I just want to sit here and be able to kind of digest and help any of you articulate and feel comfortable to hear about this topic, because it's a very serious topic and there's no good time to talk about these things. But we are today. We are tonight. So I want to start with time. A lot of people ask, how do I overcome adversity and trauma? And obviously there's basics, like you go to a psychologist, and then you might start with a therapist and then maybe a psychologist, and then you might have to get reevaluated even further to a psychiatrist. But it all starts with a family member or a friend to let out your feelings or emotions to. And then if you don't have that, you want to go to a doctor, and then you're just going to go up the ranks. And my piece of advice from the research that I've done and personal experience is not substituting your emotions and suppressing it with substances. So many individuals have to go to the doctor and they feel like they have to, and they get put on ideology and these meds that's just suppressing it. It's a band-aid. You'll never have the natural chemicals replenish in your mind and your brain, in your neuro state, by taking these, pills. If you're very, very strong in the rut. And I mean, if you can go like a full 6 months to even a year with no substances and you still feel completely depersonalized, you feel like you can't wake up because your anxiety is so bad, or your depression, no matter how sunny it is or how many people are around you, still feel sad, then I might recommend to consult with a doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist, or therapist. But for the sake of this video, what I want to say is for myself is I never took any substances. No alcohol, no marijuana, no psychedelics. I mean, literally nothing. When my mother passed away and my father or anyone, I always had in the back of my mind is I don't need anything to suppress this feeling. I'm going to embrace this feeling, and I'm going to take it on head first and I'm going to overcome it. And I know not everyone has that mindset. And I didn't just start and wake up one day and all my family members were dead. It was a constant incline, a linear effect, if you want to say it, or if you want to kind of visualize, of hardships and adversities. So I kind of had these things stack up, financial or arguments, etc., relationship, friendships, family member, death, etc. That built my mind, just like if you were to go to the gym and you build up a muscle group. And some people, their whole family gets in a car accident and they all pass away, and then it's just all at once. There's no answer to that. And I'm here to tell you, no matter how important someone is to you, you're gonna wake up the next day, and or even that day. Say you lose a family member or a relationship or whatever. The only people you have, maybe a select few people hitting you up. You might have a couple phone calls coming in. Everyone's gonna want to kind of hear the news, but also want to be there for you. And you're gonna have that for the first, 5 to 10 hours, and then you're gonna have some people that are hearing from other people. You're gonna have a week of this support. But after that week, you'll really see who's true to you. And after that week, you're also going to see what you are and how true you are to be able to get past and overcome an adversity. Because you wake up and you see maybe your neighbor Tony going to his job at 9 a.m. And then you see your neighbor Susan that's maybe retired watering your flowers. The world will always go around. And then you just have to put on this face. Your employer or your, maybe if you're a business owner, you can't stop. But, say your employer says, hey, do you want a week off? Do you want 2 weeks? Take your time, blah, blah, blah. But after those weeks are up, hey, they need to run their business. Or if you're a business owner, if you stop, you're not making any income and you're going to lose this. That's the cycle of life. Is that right? No, it's not right. But that is just how ruthless life kind of can seem. But don't look at it like that. Have a perception. We have to embrace that we're put here for free at the transaction of death. And once you acknowledge that, you're really going to start living. That's when you're really going to start living. Think about it. The average age people lose their parents is around when they're in their 50s. When their parents pass away, male is 74.5, and their mother might be in their 80.5, I think is the average. And take that in. When that's the average of people experiencing such a severe adversity, the wisdom and the shell shock that they get is just like boom. So they just figured out how vulnerable their life is and just life in general until they're like middle age. So if you're younger and you're going through that breakup, you're going through those bad grades, or you're having mental disorders in terms of no focus, ADHD, depression, anxiety, you lose a family member, you're going to feel like it's the end of the world. You're young. You're going through these changes while also life is still moving at such a fast pace, faster than if you're at 40 or 50 established. But it keeps going on. You're like, well, when does it stop? And the answer is it doesn't. It stops when you stop. So take that as you please, and really acknowledge that. I guess my point of that is, don't be discouraged ever. Don't feel like you have to keep up with people, because your pace of overcoming an adversity or trauma is your pace. There is no right or wrong answer. And life might be very ruthless about it. Your boss might only give you a day off or a week, or, your customers, if you're a business owner, might not genuinely care. Or maybe you have a huge business and it's pharmaceuticals and they need that, and you're keeping some other people alive, or you're keeping people on payroll so they can feed their families. Whatever your situation is, just please understand that there is no pace or right or wrong answer. You're going to feel this stuff. I'm a hypocrite if I said time doesn't heal. Because I used to say time does heal. The only thing that heals you is time. But then I realized time just scars over the wounds. Time just blurs your recollection of your past memories. I can't envision and really feel like I used to of when my mother and I hugged, or when I said a good morning or a good afternoon or have a great night, God bless you, I love you. I don't remember it like I used to. And that's because everyone gets put in a sudden state of shock, depression, anxiety, or whatever their mind response is to trauma. So then how to really actually overcome trauma and adversity of whatever it is is actually embracing it. Like actually saying, okay, I'm gonna hit this head on and sober too. Fulfill your habits that your body's gonna want to lay in bed and not do anything, eat bad, just isolate, not talk to anyone. But what you should be doing is socializing with the right people, the people that have their head on straight. You want to be working out, you want to be educating, you want to be self-developing during these moments, because this is when you should be self-developing the most, because if you don't, you're going to be snowballing down further than you ever been before. And so help me God, or whatever you believe in, there's a high chance that that could be the end of you. That could be the end of your potential, your life. It's severe. Life is very fragile. And just know, whatever you believe in, you'll never be the unique self you are right now listening to this ever again in this life. So if you're willing to sacrifice and you feel so ready to get off of it, please seek out to get help from someone. Genuinely. Because there's nothing more drastic and detrimental than when I hear when someone takes himself off this earth. Because we're here one time and we're put here for free, and this should feel like an experience, a good one too, not a negative one by any means. I'm going to talk more on this about happiness, but for the sake of this segment, trauma comes and goes in waves. And people will also say, are you happy? Well, happy isn't forever. Happy isn't just right now. Happy comes in moments. That's happiness. It comes in moments, because one day you might be awesome, and then the next day you're a failure. So remember that. Happiness will come and go. You'll never always be truly happy. You will never be truly happy always. I promise you that. Stop seeking it. You can be overall happy, but you'll never be 100% happy, and if you do, you're going to feel unfulfilled. So accept it now, and you're going to accept and be a lot happier, ironically. So trauma is the same way in adversity. It's going to come and go. I'm going to feel awesome. I'm on top of the world right now. And then tomorrow I might, have a memory pop up of my mother, father, or, grandpa, grandma, etc. I might have, one of those memories pop up. And, I used to just on the spot, just start tearing eyed, just straight face, tears coming down my face while driving. Wow. I maybe have a business meeting in 5 minutes, or I just got done with one or something, and it just hit me. I'm just like, what? Why? That's normal. You're supposed to let those emotions out. And when my father passed away, he passed away first when I was in high school, and I didn't let out my emotions, and that hurt me so much more, rather than when my mother passed and I just let it out. I just told my girlfriend my anger and all these emotions. I woke up even earlier the day after and put my head up, said, I'm going to work harder now. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work out harder. I'm going to run faster, longer, whatever, you name it. And that's the mentality you kind of have to have with things, is you want to look as if, whoever's passed, you're carrying on something. You were created here. Now it's for you to make that decision on if there's a purpose or not. The next one is vulnerability is very important for growth. You have to be vulnerable and sensitive to grow. Because if you're not, you're going to think you're a know-it-all. You're going to think you're a big tough guy. And you're not going to let anything get inside you. And when I mean get inside you, I mean really being retentive and letting things kind of be acknowledged and learn. Because if you're not doing that, your body external isn't going to do anything. So you have to acknowledge that you want to be vulnerable and sensitive. And when we're children, it's quite the opposite. Because sometimes we're vulnerable and then things happen bad, because like when we're children, we're all vulnerable, and then things happen bad, and then now we have traumas because, say whatever it is, you wanted to eat a cookie and you got slapped across your face, you're never going to want to touch a cookie again. So it's things like that are a little extreme, but are very true, and something you want to really take note on. So definitely stay in tuned with how you react with things now. Is your inner child coming out? We all have our inner child within us, and it never leaves us. So when you act a certain way to your relationship, friendships, peers, or yourself, your habits, a lot of it is actually stemming from your younger self. So when you go to therapy or anything, and I haven't, but I've done an immense amount of studying and education on my behalf, and a lot of it always comes down to an individual will, or a therapist or psychiatrist or whatever it is, they reverse engineer kind of how you grew up, your upbringing, and everything else to come. So I would say it comes down to that. They reverse engineer and they dissect and they try to really get to know who you were when you were younger so you can figure out who you are now, because that's life. It's like we're a compound of like coding and sequence of events that just constantly stack on each other, or like a house. You're constantly building your foundation and the framing and all these things, and eventually you have a house that's you as a human being. Or a sponge, you're soaking up all this education, things you like, don't like, that hurt you, you stay away from, pleasure you get attracted by, and you become this person, individual. So we have to kind of work back and reverse engineer to find who you are, in order to solve what you do and don't like now. So in conclusion of that, vulnerability is the capacity of how much you can be wounded. So take that as you please and mind yourself that. So this is one that I hear so many times from psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, all over, in books, in person, everything, you name it, is children with unconditional love. I did not have it easy growing up. It was a wave of every adversity you can think of. It was a wave. But the one thing I did have was unconditional love. My mother would always say she believes in me. If I told my mom I was going to be an astronaut tomorrow, she'd be like, all right, let me know if there's anything I can help you with. Or if I said, I'm going to go to the NBA, next year, she'd be like, okay, what can I help you with? Let me know when your game is. That's the belief that you need, that unconditional love. And that's one thing I find missing in so many individuals is you can have the perfect family, financially stable, or even just middle class. But if your parents are they're too caught up in the cycle, they're not given unconditional love or just love in general, and kids always feel the need like they have to fight for maybe attention from the parents, or just fight for the love or anything. That's why individuals are always trying to seek validation for anything and everything. They might think that they have to make a certain amount of money, or they have to, love more, or, oh, hey, is there something wrong? Like anxiety and all these things. It all starts somewhere, and it typically starts there. So that's one thing I don't really want to talk on, because I did receive unconditional love, and I don't want to, talk on a segment that I've never experienced, because this is all, keep in mind, trauma and all this is all perception based. We all have our own way of overcoming it. We all have our own timeline with it. We all have our own understanding on it. Trauma and adversity is still studies today. We're still studying it. That's why our psych state and neuro is the biggest philosophy study today, because we're still trying to figure it out. Once we figure out this, it's probably going to be good, but see when the time comes. The next big topic I really want to talk about is environment. Environment can cause trauma on an individual, not just family or upbringing. Keep in mind, trauma is not just genetic or anything like that, or just household. This is environment. There's things that you're driving and you see and experience, and boom, you get trauma from that. So keep that in mind. And also, the biggest thing I'm realizing is even beyond the trauma and adversities, is we're getting into the state where that's not just what's causing depression and everything. Why is the generations now just absolutely ramping up on mental illness? And yes, some may say, oh, well, the market wants to sell more medication to kids. And yes, that's true. There's like 50 million, if I'm not mistaken, in North America with mental illness. And then there's like millions of children that are experiencing issues with mental illness, ADHD, attention span, and depression, anxiety, you name it. How many individuals are in tune to nature anymore? And I'm not saying that to like blame the parents or just in general. It's just the society of what we've created is not doing good right now. Like, if there's one thing that I can explain to people is make just enough money for you to have a roof over your head, have your lifestyle funded in terms of your basic survival, and then every waking amount of hours you have, or minutes and financial, invest to buy your time back. Once you buy your time, you get clarity. Once you have clarity, you can figure out and focus on your health, so your physical health, and then your internal health, your mental health. And then once you get that, now you really have control of your body and mind. Now what you can do is actually start focusing on developing the person you truly want to become, and then also develop the person that's deserving and has enough time now to go back to nature, which sounds ironic. It's like, oh, I should build a house and the American dream and all that. No. Build up enough so you can just fulfill yourself with that paradigm that you've been indoctrinated to believe you need so much, and then go to the person that should be grounded with nothing. Go to a third world country, help with philanthropy, all these things. Once you do that, you're going to kind of reset this paradigm. So if that's trauma or adversity, experiences, or psychedelics, you'll kind of reset this paradigm that's been created and kind of brainwashed or indoctrinated within you. And you're going to really realize, like, whoa, I'm not attached to things. And there's a whole world out here. You know what I mean? And your narcissism or selfishness, you name it, your greed, that's all going to kind of deplenish. Kids with the video games and social media and all this stuff, we're always in an altered reality. We're living through other people. We're enjoying other people live rather than us actually just even knowing who we truly are. There's no creativity anymore. It's one big recycle bin on social media, on creations, innovations, inventions. Like, it's all kind of a regurgitated hamster wheel recycle bin that we have going on now in the world. The people that have actually like created things, I mean, from industrialists, we got philosophers that have created everything from like 17 or 1800s, from medical to books or basic education. Not much has changed. If you go to those dates around 18th and early 1900s, they are a lot more educated in terms of even just their basic vocabulary comparative to where we are today. That is very concerning, which means the system has worked for years, but now it's actually starting to do the quite opposite. It's creating workers and not thinkers anymore. So how can you become a thinker? Like I said, buy yourself time back. So obviously you have to go buy the systems that we have, do what you have to do, and then buy your time back, find yourself, develop, have the clarity, start thinking, and boom. Now you're a unique, creative person that's found your highest self, hopefully. So that's that. We'll talk more about that another time. And that one is, our health is predetermined by our attachment to items and things. So really, really take note and keep repeating that to yourself. Another thing I wanted to touch base on is, don't get caught up in identification or titles. So what I mean by that is, if I ask you, like, who are you as a person? You're going to say, oh, well, I'm a college student, or, oh, I play football, or I'm going to be an accountant. I am an accountant. I'm a business owner, blah, 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 blah. Your name is just given to help the system. Your social security is to keep you on the numbers and analytics. But when we ask someone who you are, it's always, oh, well, I do this or I do that, blah, blah. It's like, no, who are you as a person? We don't ever ask, like, how someone's doing anything or anymore. It's, oh, what do you do? It's actually rude in some cultures, especially different countries than America, to actually ask someone what they do for a living, because they don't care. That's very like first principle, first dimension thinking. Like, it's beyond that. Like, who are you as a person? So we're very uncultured in that standpoint, in America at least. Try to detach yourself from titles. Really narrow down on just being a good person, and things are going to start gravitating your way. That's just kind of as simple as that. Is don't identify. Another identification I've talked about before is sports games. Why do you watch sports games? Okay, if you like it, I get that. It's a hobby, or you're passionate about it, or you used to play. Whatever it is, you like it, okay, cool, watch it. It shouldn't be more than a game. So many people are betting like life savings on it. So many people are their weeks ruined or their years ruined if their team doesn't make it or win it in the Super Bowl or championship, whatever it is. So now it went from a game now to the basic like ancient Rome again, where it's like, life or death, like winner or loser, death or survival. Like, that's where we've looked at this game now. When I watch individuals literally like tearing up or whatever it is over it, I'm like, you've really lost yourself. And that's just with sports. There's people that do this in business. There's people who do this in just their everyday life of a career, education, whatever it is. It's like, you're separate from that. And that's something that psychedelics and adversities, trauma, experiences, travel will kind of help you detach, your body from, your obviously your ego